This is a general body warm-up for a Pilates class at the Movement Refinery or for your home practice. This can also be used as a morning wake-up or an evening down regulation before sleep. These are simple exercises. I would encourage you to do at least 10 repetitions of each, working with comfort in mind, of course. Today I'll just do a few of each so that you get a chance to see the full series and we can be mindful of time. I'm going to use a chi ball at one point, so find something like that or some tennis balls that you have at home. Of course, if you're in the studio, you have advantage of all of our toys. Let's start with a ball under the lower back and more on the tailbone, as we would call it. And we're just starting with posterior tilting, so rolling the pelvis, the tailbone up toward the ceiling, and then returning to your elongation position. Breathing out, tilt your pubic bone and hips up, so it's kind of like a ski ramp, and then release back into your start position. The start position is what we maybe used to call neutral pelvis. I refer to it as a natural pelvic position. Feel free to focus more on the rolling in and out of it, rather than the static positions themselves. Once you've done a few, and you might have some mental space to process, I want you to try and find a way of doing this without feeling like you're moving a 50-kilo fridge. So this is a relaxation moment where we're thinking about the critical mobility required in the joints to make that rotating action. Now we're going to go the opposite direction, anterior pelvic tilt, the tailbone is going to go forward, creating what looks like more of an arch in the lower back. I want you to think of rolling forward over the ball rather than rolling the tailbone back underneath you and causing a larger low back arch. This is more about the pelvic action than the lower back action, and they are separate. At times we will include them, of course, but this is just our warm-up, where we're pulling our skills and our mind together to create that perfect balance of mind and body. Okay, a lateral action, thinking of your waistband as a typewriter carriage, and I would like to see your hips move across to the side 1 inch max, and then back to center. Just a small action to the other side and center. It is absolutely natural, normal, expected for you to feel a little different from side to side, or that one side is completely stuck. If you can hear the delightful sound of construction outside, feel free to leave me or turn the volume down. So just looking at those lateral typewriters, and that means that as we're moving from side to side, there's no side bend, mermaid or cooler action or rotation at the same time. And then speaking of that, let's look at a side bend of the pelvis and lower back. So the right side is going to shorten up as the left side gets to stretch, and then we come back to center. Off to the other side. And enjoy a good number of these each side, but if you're new to them or it's first thing in the morning you've been asleep, take the time. If you have been asleep, make sure you walk around the house or go on for a 10-minute walk first. Sometimes our bodies need time to decompress from our sleeping positions, and our discs need time to reduce. Okay, I'm just going to do a few posterior tilts, and just to get myself comfortable, and then looking at pelvic rotation. So the pelvis, this is the ball, and this is the pelvis, and we're gliding over that ball, but trying to stay purely in rotation. Sometimes when we get a little frisky, we might add a little bit of a ski slope twist from side to side. Just keep it as pure as possible, straight down the line. Okay, let's take that out. I find it's great to start with this so that we have some differentiation between our pelvis, our low back and our middle back. And now we'll take it into the windscreen wiper series. I'm just going to start with my feet hip width apart, but you can do it strictly together. You'll show your choice. And just let the legs fall. As you're letting this happen, ignore the fact that I'm talking at you and just breathe and let the legs fall with gravity. Although it looks like the legs are doing this, what we're trying to achieve is a stretch across the torso and down into the legs at the junction, which is your pelvis. So remember that it's not about slapping the knees to the side or achieving an end position. It is here absolutely about the goodness that comes from the journey. So we're letting the pelvic weight shift and the legs contrast to the direction. If you want to get more specific, as the pelvis takes the legs across, we're taking a counter stretch through our rib cage. So you do you, lean in as much as you like, overthink about it as much as you like, but just know that we are getting some rotation into the body and preparing you for a strong classical class or a gentle body conditioning class, or just dealing with your own reality and your own day. Now I want you to take your legs much wider apart, as wider as the surface will allow, and in addition to what you just did, I want you to then focus on the leg rotating inward to your midline. I'm not going to tell you to make sure your knee touches the other heel, but I want you to feel like that side is really spiraling inward, but not so much that you have to compensate with your upper body. These windscreen wipers we could do all day, so excuse me if I've over-repped you, but I do 10 each side without fail a few times a day, especially if you're someone like me who lives in a tighter body that feels quite compressed from sitting and modern life. And into the pretzel position or figure 4, your focus here remains the same as all 3, but this is more difficult in that you do need to maintain that rotation. I would rather you focus on being comfortable and getting the rotation, the connection of the lower to the upper body, rather than focusing on pushing that down and faking the rotation and working harder into the hip than you need to. Work with comfort, but if your idea of comfort is letting it slop inward, then we've got to find a middle ground. So comfortable amount of hip rotation, and then rotate the body from side to side and change. And I think each version, crossing the midline and going away from the midline, have their own benefits. So make sure you do both. Okay, just for time, I'm going to shorten the reps on this side. Again, I'd encourage 10 each side. Okay, and from here, just bring the legs in, circle them around. In, around 10 each way. That makes 3, so it's time to change. Breathe out as the legs come towards your center. Okay, now from here, just place my legs down, and I'm going to rock over onto my side for chest opener. Hands are behind the head. Just going to take the mic off and just get squelchy. Hands are behind the head, legs are bent up as high as you need for support. From this position, inhale, rotate back without arching through the back or leading from the shoulder. Close it off. I'm going to do 5 for time and a different variation on the other side, so feel free to pause once we've done your 5 so you can get to the 10. Okay, so as I'm going back, I'm not doing the 80s family wedding sprinkler dance, I'm pushing with my arm. I'm rotating my rib cage away from my thighs. I'm going to let my top arm just hang out with gravity at the back, but not so much that it encourages my whole body to arch. Our target here are the joints of the middle spine and upper back. So by pushing into a bigger arch, because we might have an achievement mindset of getting to the end, or slamming my arm, it takes us away from the actual purpose of doing the exercise. Less is more. Looking at the other side, please do the same exercise on the other side. This one. And the idea is that the head stays as low as possible. You might need to use a ball or a pillow while you're doing this. Ignore my head alignment. But now both arms are out in front, and I'm going to reach forward on the top arm, and then bring it back in. So my top hand goes in front, slides along the bottom hand, and pulls back. 6 times. Once you've done your 6th one, do the same exercise as a moment ago, but with an outstretched arm. So this is often called in some studios telescope arms or book openers. But at the end of the day, this is about releasing and rotating into the upper body and chest and bringing that nourishment out of the sagittal plane, or how we T-Rex to type an email, and into our full potential as human movers. Once you've done 5 to 10 of those with a straight arm, I would encourage you to reach forward again, circle up, 12 o'clock, around to 9, and move your body. And I would do 5 to 10 in each direction. If you're doing several versions of this and you only have a couple of minutes, because you're running late to class or someone needs something from you at home, maybe you would do 3 reps behind the head, 3 of the arm reaches, 3 of the book openers, and 3 circles in each direction. Remembering that the focus is on movement, healthy movement through the body, and not going to the end range just because. And when you're done, come onto your back. I might just roll back over here and bring my friend with me. And earlier we were looking at those pelvic tilts. And now what I would like to do is a pelvic curl. So hip width apart, you can turn this into a morning exercise or a very strict Pilates exercise, your vibe, your choice. But what I want to see is segmental articulation through spinal flexion. So that's the purpose of this exercise, that we're training the brain to understand the sequence that is often used in contemporary Pilates, clinical Pilates, and what we do here, actual Pilates. So no shade to those other modalities, but this exercise is about preparing you for the rollback, the rollover, short box, knee stretches, etc. And understanding that focus of pelvic tilt, lumbar spine, rolling up, making sure at the top we haven't released those positions, and then rolling down is not only giving you what the contemporary clinical schools would say, which is a glute and hamstring exercise, the coordination and the breathing, but what I'm looking for is that cognitive action of where you're training your brain to understand the sequence of events so that we leave your session with an acquired skill. Of course, you can add other things to that if you have time. You could do it from one leg. You could do it with a straight leg. You could do it with a straight high leg. You could add some of those actions from the chi ball that we did before. And that is a great example of bringing the classical and contemporary and clinical all together. But let's also look over on the other side of your body for a moment. We need to think about some extension through the upper body. So lift through the chest and then release down. This is a warm-up. It's not about doing the swan. So arms are wide and high above your head. Pick it up. Put it down. If you know that you're a bit of a ponytail pulling back type of person, think about your eyes actually draping down. If you know that you're this person, it's not going to kill you to think of your eyes as paintbrushes, as Kathy Grant would say. Look forward and actually lead from that. But if you're in doubt as how to do it, and you're lucky to have one of these with you, you can always put this under here as a roller or barrel, and then work your way up to your neutral line, and then find a thoracic extension. Even though this is a warm-up, You might require some pillows or props underneath the front of your body so that you don't extend first. Whatever you need is great for me. And to finish the series, going back into your windscreen wipers, but this time face down. The leg is bent, the leg lifts, and rotate and reach. Now again, I'm shortening these repetitions because of time, but I would definitely aim for 10 plus decent technical reps of each motion. Sometimes it takes us a few pancakes that are burnt and squashed before we get that lovely round one. So feel free to do a few, analyze how you're doing it, provide yourself some feedback, and then do 10 delightful, or 20, or 30. It all depends on where you're at. And then we'll finish in child's pose if it's accessible to you, and if it's not, that's fine. There are many other ways we can do it, like being on your back with your legs bent in. Or even just sitting like this, and pulling your body over there, which also corresponds to short box tree. Have a lovely session.